Welcome to Honest Whispers Preview for Sale. On this video, I'll be previewing Justice League of America Series 3 Wonder Woman action figure. Released by DC Direct on January 7th, 2009. This figure is approximately 6.5 inches tall, based on the artwork by Ed Benyes, sculpted by Ray Villafane. It comes with the detachable golden lasso and a displayable base. I'm going to go over 6 different categories to preview this. First category is design, covers the concept, the look, and the points of articulations. And for the concept, it is Justice League of America action figures based on the artwork by Ed Benyes. And the overall look is great. And for the points of articulations, this figure has 11 points of articulations, 1 at the neck, 2 shoulders, 2 elbows, 2 wrists, 2 legs or hips, and 2 knees. But when you look at the points of articulation closely, the one at the neck is useless, because if you look at the hair is contoured over her shoulders, and you can see it's right against her upper back. So the hair will get in the way if you try to move it. And looking at the way the hair is right next to both shoulders, probably not going to be able to move the head at all. The only thing you could really pose this figure with would be the arms. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at the hip joints and the knee joints, they're all hinge joints that move in one direction. So if you bend her legs or fold her legs, especially like in a sitting position, from the way the joints are, it's going to look awkward. Her knees are going to be spread apart while her feet come together. So the best thing you could really do with the leg joints would be to make sure both feet are flat on the ground. And that's why I would have preferred them not making joints for the legs, especially when it's not going to be posable with. The look isn't bad, but definitely doesn't look like Ed Benyes' Wonder Woman. Although I would probably put those hits on the next category, sculpting. Still, when I look at the overall look, like the costume and the proportions, it's not bad. And that's why I give the design score an above average 8 out of 10. Next category is sculpting, covers the details, quality of the sculpt, quality of the mold. And starting from the top, the hair is nicely sculpted. You could see the direction that it's flowing towards. Now, it does look like a lot of lines. Like, in other words, it does look like they try to sculpt almost every strand of hair. So you'll see lines pretty much everywhere, which isn't bad from afar, but when I look at it really up close, it does look a bit messy, I guess would be the best word. I guess if there's certain areas where it was just nice, flat, and smooth, or not like flat, but you know, on a curve, nice, consistent smoothness to it, and the detailed lines were kind of mixed in or blended in, would have been better. Face, from first impression, does not look good. Actually, kind of looks ugly. On certain angles, it looks okay. Like this angle's not bad. But when I look at it from the front and even from this angle, it's kind of ugly. My main issue with it would be the lips. The lips are a bit unproportioned. It's a bit thick and wide compared to the rest of her face. So in some angles, it does look like she has like fish lips, or she had some kind of lip injection, and it's kind of swollen up. Details on the costume is really nice. I love those little wrinkles on her corset, right under her breasts, and even on the seam lines. You could see little stretch marks or little wrinkles that make it look like fabric. The breastplate looks great overall, but it's a bit crooked. So it kind of has this slight tilted angle. If I look at, so if you draw like a middle, like a line going straight down from top to bottom, right down the middle, then it's going to be slightly on that angle. Now it could be that her body is slightly contorted, and that's why it looks like that. But if you look at it, especially when you look at from the tip, okay, all the points, basically the tips, then you'll see that it is angled. Like here, I'll make it straight, so it is angled in that slight different direction. And with some molding issues, you can see a little bump right there on the right breast. Something they could have easily smoothed it out or sanded off before they painted it. And then belt overall is nice, a little bit more symmetrical than the breastplate. The muscle details, again, too much for me, especially when you look at Ed Benyus's artwork. He has a very nice balance between an athletic and a feminine body. This one, especially when you look at the right leg or right thigh, just too much muscle details. Even right there at her upper thigh, almost, I don't know if that's supposed to be veins or, you know, part of her, like, I don't know, like muscles. Just muscles don't really look like that. Even right here on the upper left thigh at the edge, it looks like before it dried and hardened, somebody kind of hit the edge right there, and part of the edge got pushed in. So you have this little, I don't know what you would call that. It's almost like a little creased line or an indented line. And you could see a gap between her crotch and her left leg. Going down further, you could see the seam lines where the two molds meet right down the middle of her thigh. You could even see that on the right thigh. The seam line right there going all the way down, and this one kind of curves right there. And then when you look at the knees, especially the right leg, due to all that muscle details, part of it looks like it's chewed out. For me, when I look at it closely, it reminds me of like a dog bite wound that healed, and you could see part of the muscle is missing. And when I look at her left leg, not as much. Even the muscle detail lines in the inner thigh, yeah, not as much compared to the right thigh. So it just looks a bit inconsistent or asymmetrical, especially when you see right leg or right thigh being way more muscular than the left thigh. And due to that over exaggerated muscles, if you look at the right leg in a certain angle like this, right leg looks really awkward. Almost has this weird S shape to it. Let me kind of give you that. I think this is probably the worst right there, where you can notice it more. So if she had like her thigh bone, her femur, I don't see how it would fit right there. Otherwise, this part will be like right against the bone. So looks awkward. When I look at the left leg at the same angles, it's not as bad, and it still looks consistently straight. While here, again, it just has that weird S shape. And then the rest of the costume, the boots, really can't see too much, but still you can see some details like those little natural wrinkles and everything. So overall, it looks great. So that's why I give the sculpting score just a slightly above average, 6 out of 10. Next category is colors. Covers the accuracy of the colors, quality of the paint application. And first impression, the paint application looks great. And as far as the paint quality, it's not too bad. Everything is pretty much matte finish, but they did paint the Star Spangled Panties in a glossy, almost a metallic type of paint to it. So it has a bit of a shine. Only problem that I have is that it's a bit too dark. So if you look at the Star Spangled Panties, it looks, well, it's definitely navy blue, but almost looks black because it's so dark. And if you look at Ed Benyus's artwork, not that he does the coloring, but usually it's more of a royal blue than a navy blue. So slightly inaccurate. I guess it goes by preference, but not too many times where she wears navy blue Star Spangled Panties. And the only other part that's kind of that has a glossy finish would be her lipstick or lips. Can't be sure if she is wearing lipsticks, but you can see a nice shine to it. Now, as far as the paint application, overall it is pretty good, especially for a DC Direct product. You can see the star on the tiara, nicely filled in. Eyes, a little bit asymmetrical. Just feels like the right eye, especially where, I guess what they did is they painted like a white spot for the reflection, and it just seems like the angle that the right eye reflection is slightly off. It's like on the top area. Or not as bright. Okay, and then there is some bleeding here on the breastplate. You can see the yellow bleeding into the red. Over here on the top as well, some yellow bleeding into the red. Very subtle, you can't really tell too much, especially when you look at it from afar. But at a closer angle, you could see, again, a little bit of red bleeding into the belt, especially right here on the her upper left side. The stars are symmetrical, and it is pretty nice. I do like how they strategically placed it so it's not over the seam line. And then the boots overall is nicely painted. Very consistent lines. You might see some bleeding, slight bleeding, like that flesh color right there on the top of the boot. But otherwise, all the mistakes or little errors are very small, so there's nothing that stands out. And that's why I give the color score a solid 7 out of 10. Next category is packaging. Covers the design and functionality and the look of the overall packaging. And as you can see, this is a blister card packaging or bubble card packaging. It is a nice shape and look overall. I like how the blister or the bubble has a nice half cylinder shape to it. rather than your typical rectangle shape. So it is pretty nice when you look at it. Only problem with this is that you can't stack this or store it with other, you know, figures because of the rounded shape to it. So it's gonna I mean, it's still stackable, but yeah, it's just very hard to take care of if you're not gonna open it and keep it stored or preserved in its packaging. Now, due to the shape of the card, which is kind of nice, I like how it's not a typical square and is rounded off with the symbol kind of cut out right there at the edge. But even though it looks great, but it sticks out. It's not flat against it or anything like that. And that's why usually you always end up seeing this part of the card. As you can see, like on mine, it's been damaged, or you can see a crease right there. So it always tends to get in the way. Hard to take care of this package so that you could maintain a perfect 10.0 grade or anything like that. And then for the rest of it, you can see the back here, it's not individualized. In other words, you're gonna see the same back for all the other characters. It does show you the prior released figures for Series 1, Series 2. So in other words, if I was looking at the back of the Flash figure, I'm gonna see the same look, same design. It has the information for all of them. So not individualized. I would have, of course, preferred an individualized one, because I also don't feel like showing the pre-released figures is really that necessary. But looking at the layout again, I like how the middle is kind of blinked out so you can see the figure better. It's not completely covered because you can see the rest of the artwork just kind of faded black and white. So there's very nice touches to it. And of course, this figure is well protected. It just has that one wire in the middle where the belt is, but I think even without it, the figure would probably stay in place, because you'll see how the arms, hands is kind of locked in, and the feet, of course. That's why I give the packaging score a very high 8 out of 10. Because one thing I also want to notice, or at least point out on the packaging, you can see the lettering. It has a nice foil, like a gold foil to it. So very nice work rather than just a plain print or ink. Next category is value. Covers the suggested retail price versus the aftermarket, and of course the potential to grow in value. So whether if this is a good investment or not. And of course, price versus quality. Quality for this overall is not bad. When it first came out 11 years ago, or in 2009, this figure, can't remember the exact price, but it was in the price range of between $12 to $16. So might have been like $12.99 or $15.99, but definitely more in that $12 or $15 range rather than the $20 range. I listed this for $35 and ended up selling it for $30 plus shipping, which was around like $7.59. So in 11 years, it did pretty much double in its, value, which isn't bad. And this was the only listing, at least at the time of sale. So it's definitely on the rare side. And that's what, and I also see this continue to go up in value due to those reasons. And that's why I give the value score a pretty high 8 out of 10. Final categories overall accumulates the 5 prior categories: design, sculpting, colors, packaging, and value. And this one, even though I do like the overall look, I have to admit, like the face, it just could have been better. The costume looks great, but in certain areas, I just feel like the breasts, when I look at it from the side, it looks like the breasts are smashed in, because when I look at the rib cage, her upper, I guess her upper stomach area, and then when I look at her breasts, the breast doesn't come out that much. It's almost flat against her rib cage area. While you could see her breast from the top and cleavage, it just doesn't stick out forward, so it just looks like it's smashed. And when I look at it from other angles, especially from this down angle, her right breast is even more in, or rather, if I word it differently, her left breast is sticking out a little bit more than her right breast. So even that looks a bit weird. But that's, of course, when you're looking at it really up close. Overall sculpt and colors are pretty good, especially for a DC Direct, and definitely does have some value in this figure. I just wish the face would have looked better. Then I would have definitely kept it, even though I bought this to keep it as part of my collection. So that's why I give the overall score slightly above average, 6 out of 10. So to recap: design, 8 out of 10. Sculpting, 6 out of 10. Colors, 7 out of 10. Packaging, 8 out of 10. Value, 8 out of 10. And overall, 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Until next time, continue reading the King James Version Bible and eat your vitamin C's daily.